Hi, I'm Dr. Gail Randall, and I'm here for my 6 o'clock Instagram TV. And if you're here with me, you're my date. So, thanks for coming. I know this was a tough one for you, and it's a tough one for all of us, really. Because when I put on my Instagram, I mean, you guys responded to my spiritual posts. I got hundreds of likes. But when I put up, do you want to investigate why your grocery bill is 30% more this year than last year? And something about climate change. On the grocery bill, I got about 20-something likes. And on the climate change, I got 6 or 8. And I get it. I get it. We've been so inundated with fear from the news reels and the government about so many other things that you just can't handle another thing and you just shut down. But it is something that we need to talk about, and I'd like to help lead the way and show you there's hope in this regard. There is. And if we come together, we can beat this thing, but we have to come together, and we do have to talk about it and think about it, because if we ignore it, it's just going to happen to us, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse. So let me deliver first what I said I would talk about, and that's the grocery bill, and then we'll talk a little bit about climate change, because that's part of why your grocery bill is so high. First, I want to give it credits to the Washington Post, and also to my hero and friend, David Attenborough, who I first got acquainted with through my African love, and he wrote and directed and had the documentary The Great Migrations. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you see it. It's just beautiful. It's like one of the 8th wonders of the world or whatever, because he shows how the rains come down every year from the Angola mountains and flood the desert, the Sahara Desert in Africa. And it turns into an Eden. It turns into grasslands and full of water. And all of the animals throughout Africa, the zebras, the giraffes, the elephants, they all migrate through the desert to get to the grasses and the waters. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful story. And I was there to witness that 3 times. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful Netflix documentary which will help you fall in love more with the planet than you are already. So anyway, I recommend that. I also recommend his recent documentary, The Year the Earth Changed. And we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that in a little moment. So hi everybody, thanks for joining me. I'm going to deliver what I told you I would now, and that is, why has your grocery bill gone up 30% in the last year? It's interesting because before the pandemic, we didn't really think much about where did our food come from, or how far was it trucked or shipped, or, was it grown locally or far, or, things like that, until our grocery shelves went empty during COVID. And it wasn't just because people were hoarding, it's because it wasn't getting to us. And the same reason why our grocery bill's gone up now. It's supply chain disruption, and it's still going on now, and it's partially a result of COVID, and it's partially a result of climate change, and also labor problems, because so many people went out of work with the COVID pandemic, and people don't really want to go back to work because some of the jobs were very highly risky in terms of getting COVID, and now they're getting paid even though they're not working. So overall, the wholesale level of prices for groceries gone up 8.3% since August. And those prices are passed on to guess who? Us. The most sensitive areas are meat and poultry and eggs, which are up 5.9% from last year, 15.7% from just July, and it's not slowing down because we also have inflation overall, not just in this country but globally. So money's getting printed, but there's not the gold to back it up like is supposed to be. So it's causing problem. So we're not only having supply chain disruptions, but a lot of businesses have gone out of business. Ingredients are hard to get because they're not being shipped, they're not being made. Many companies, many big factories like plastic companies, although that doesn't break my heart, but have gone out of business. And a lot of food relies on plastic, especially the stuff in the center of the grocery store as opposed on the edges, not the produce. Relies on plastic to preserve it and get it to us and have it be long lasting in there. So we're paying the higher prices and they keep charging higher and higher prices. It's very unpredictable. There's lack of staffing. There's unpredictability in trucking and container shipping. Lead times have dragged out to more than 12 weeks with food manufacturers stalled out waiting for ingredients, like I said. And the stuff in the middle aisles of the grocery store just is not getting delivered. A lot of sweeteners and sugar is very hard to get. The prices of that are going way up, and everything that's made from it. Again, I don't really love sugary drinks, but people do want them, and their prices are going very high. So the really interesting point here, the wait outside of Los Angeles port, here very close to where I live, can be as long as 8 days, and at any given time there are at least 50. So sorry. Missed one. Okay. Anyway, so I was talking about the container ships here in Los Angeles. At any given time, there are at least 56 ships waiting out there trying to get in to unload their goods. And what we're seeing is many of them are just turning around and leaving because the stuff is on the container ships just rotting, or they don't want to wait, and they don't wait to get their boats refilled again. So it's not a good thing. 80% of traded goods travel by shipping container, and what used to cost, a 40-foot steel container used to cost $1,900 is now costing more than $14,000. So that's going to drive our prices up as well. So it's the pandemic, it's the multiple weather disasters around the globe, all adding up, and the labor problems, getting people to do these jobs is what's resulting in our higher and higher grocery bills. There's a shortage not only of plastic, but wood. Many of you may have heard about this. I mean, it's very difficult to build a house now. Wood is anywhere from 3 to 10 times more expensive, so they can't get or make the wooden pallets that they put these things on to ship them. And there's many mills that have shut down, which have shut down, grains, the availability of grains and things like that. So, what's going to fix it? Well, what is going to fix it? In World War II, I made a note of this somewhere, but 40% of the gardens in the United States supplied 50% of the food. 40% of the gardens supplied 50% of the food. Now I'm going to get back to that because we're going to unpack that, because I really think that's a wave of the future. As a matter of fact, when I had Timothy Kircheville on my show, he's a restorative farmer and gardener and teaches people how to do community farming and gardening and sharing, and he stated that right now we have the hugest movement back towards what he called homesteading, or community gardens, or people growing their own food, that has ever been seen since World War II. So it's a huge movement. It's a healthy movement, because you know what? We are not dependent on anybody when we grow our own food. And they can't govern us and tell us what we can grow and what we can't grow. And it's organic, and it creates oxygen, and it fixes carbon in the earth, and it feeds us in a very sustainable way. Even if you don't have a plot, like I have 14 fruit trees in my yard. I'm just lucky that I have a small yard, but I can grow a lot of stuff in there. I grow tomatoes and herbs and things like that. If you don't have a yard, you can put it in pots on your porch, on your deck, or even if you have an apartment, you usually have a little patio area, you can put pots, you can grow things in there. And I even grow things on my windowsill. If you can grow things on your windowsills if you don't have a deck. So there's always some way you can grow things. You can grow these sprouts. There's a company called Hamama, and it's very easy. Or you can do your own. You can buy broccoli seeds, put the right nutrients in a porcelain dish, and grow yourself broccoli sprouts. It turns out the sprouts of any of these foods, cilantro, broccoli, I love them all, are 10 to 100 times more nutrient dense than the grown-up food. So, unless you live in a cave, you can grow food. So back to the grocery bill. It's also again about the drought. We have a huge drought here in the Southwest. A lot of cows died. The water became prohibitively expensive, and many ranchers sold their animals, slaughtered them because they couldn't afford to feed them and water them, and sold their water to other farmers. So it's really what's going on. Even in California's Central Valley, where the drought was not affected equally in all areas, the agricultural economist at the University of California, Davis, said water was diverted, precious water was diverted to tree nuts, and as opposed and taken away from crops like cotton, wheat, and alfalfa, which pretty much permanently removed them right now from the state. So there are going to be shortage of those things. And then the California rice growers sold their water and left the fields unplanted. So we've really got to address a couple of things. We got to address, we got to repair the damage that happened because of COVID. And we've got to think of outside the box, what can we do to feed ourselves, and what can we do to address, and I hate to say the word because I don't want to shut you down, climate change. There are a lot of things we can do. People just say, oh my God, there's nothing I can do about that, and so they don't do anything. They don't do anything. They talk about, oh yeah, that's terrible, but they don't do anything when there are many things we can do. I would like to suggest and lead the way. First of all, we got to admit. We got to admit to ourselves, to each other, and to get together, to every person on the globe, that this is the greatest crisis that Earth and humanity has ever seen. And so we're just going to shut our eyes and go out? That's never what we've done before. We're can-do people. What can we do? So I think, as a matter of fact, I know that regeneration is the key to healing. We regenerate every day. We're humans. We're alive. We're biological creatures. We have 30 trillion cells, and our 30 trillion cells are busy. in their little regenerative processes every single day. And if we feed them right, we get healthier, and if we don't feed them right, we don't get healthier. But if we do the right things, we regenerate. And we can do this, and the planet regenerates too. And so I suggest, going back to that documentary I told you about, watch the documentary, David Attenborough's documentary, The Year the Earth Changed. It just gave me a huge aha moment when I watched that documentary. I mean, I knew a lot of the things that the Earth, many things happened, but globally, when we took ourselves out, and during lockdown of the environment, the Earth healed globally. Whales began to communicate in new languages because they could actually hear each other. Animals and began to get along with people in a whole unique way. People in India, in a place called Amara, there was a huge conflict because they had taken the land from the elephants where they would graze, because they need something like 150 kilos of plant material a day to grow rice. And then the elephants would come and eat their field, and there was a constant conflict, and every year people would die, elephants would die. So they made a new system, and they grew fast-growing grass and rice on the outside of their rice fields. And then they created a ceremony, and they invited the elephants in to eat that fast-growing grass and rice on the outside of their crops. The first ceremony they performed, 3,600 elephants showed up. That's monumental. That's incredible. The matriarchal herd of 30, their moms and calves and even male elephants, they all came, and they all grazed on the grasses outside of the crop areas, which were for them. And they did not invade the inside crops, and they did not go into the village. And it was so successful that they're going to share this technique throughout India. And this is a really grand example of how we can learn to regenerate the earth and coexist with the animals. The whales can't hear when all of our ships are going. So maybe they can do shipping in groups, so the waters are quiet during certain times, so that the whales can survive and multiply and not go extinct. There are many ways that we can think outside the box, and many things that we can do to address this. We can, like I said, start growing our own food. Scientists, because now we're having these 100-year floods in Europe, and temperatures over 100 degrees in Oregon and the Northwest and Washington and Alaska, never heard of before. During the year the world changed, the largest ozone layer, a hole in the ozone in the Arctic healed. The Himalayas, which hadn't been seen in 30 years in India, became crystal clear and visual. Flamingos returned to Mumbai. Fish returned to Venice, and the canals became clear for the first time that people could remember. Amazing healing, and it happened much faster than scientists ever believed that it could happen. Which makes us know, if we just make some small steps, if we close down the beaches 2 hours earlier, people aren't going to die because they don't get their sunshine for 2 hours, but maybe some animals won't die, and maybe they'll survive and reproduce, and the oceans can return again. We know this is true. We know if we take our impact off the ocean and we block the kind of terrible fishing with the 7-mile-long nets that kill fish, the bykill is 3 to 1, and we're basically annihilating the ocean. We know when we stop that, the oceans return very quickly. Very quickly. So we've got to do some of these steps and think about what can we do? What can we do? So instead of thinking about it, you don't want to think about it and, there's nothing I can do. It's not true. Everyone can do something. Even if it's brushing your teeth. Do you know the amount of water that it takes to brush your teeth? Most people on the planet have not seen that much fresh water in their entire lives. So turn it on, get your brush wet, brush your teeth, turn it on, then turn it off, then brush your teeth, then rinse it. Turn it on again. But don't leave it running the whole time. And you don't need to take 30-minute showers. Go in the shower, wet yourself down, suds yourself up, rinse yourself off. Turn the water off and on. Save water, because water is going to be the new gold. Wash with cold water. COVID doesn't die any better with hot water than cold water. It's the soap that kills the COVID. That's all you need is soap and water. And cold water is just fine. And you save a lot of energy that way. So, we got to think about regeneration. Regeneration is innate to humans. We have this new kind of farming, which I've talked to you about many times, regenerative farming, which returns carbon to the land. It's a no-till process. It doesn't release carbon into the air like regular farming or raising cows. That we raise the crops to feed the cattle that we torture and then eat. I call it eating our own misery. They're full of chemicals. That is responsible for as much carbon as combustion engines. So if we can reduce our combustion engines, go more towards alternative energy sources, wind, solar, electric, all of it. And if we can water power, and if we can, stop growing those worthless crops and releasing the carbon on a yearly basis and go to regenerative farming, we can get the carbon, if we can get the carbon net zero, the scientists have proven and predicted, just like it is happening, in a bad way much faster than they thought, it'll happen in a good way. Just like that in the documentary, when we took ourselves out, the year the world changed, it happened in a good way. The earth regenerated much faster than scientists thought. The planet is a living being. It's almost magical how she can respond to beneficial energy. So what I suggest is we put our life at the center of every act and decision. So every act and decision that we make in our life, put that concept of regeneration there. So when you go to Starbucks and get your drink, take your own cup. Don't use a plastic cup. When you go to the grocery store and you buy groceries, don't use those plastic bags. You're just, they're going to end up someplace in a plastic ocean. There are plastic oceans that exist in the ocean that are killing the fish and the microplastics that are collecting, which are more toxic than any of the toxins that are pretty bad in there. So you don't need those little plastic bags. They sell net bags, or you don't need them at all. Just be the brave person to put your food in the cart, take it home and wash it. It's fine. You don't need to collect it in a plastic bag. I like the net bags. They have little strings on them and you can pull them tight and then you can wash them. So those are awesome. So life needs to be a celebration. We got to stop living in fear We need to celebrate and put regeneration at the center of every act or decision that we make. And that will help the earth. Otherwise, climate migration is reshaping the future the way it is. So if we can stop some of these carbon emissions, stop the increasing temperature, slow it down, we can have an impact on this climate migration. I mean, the UN says estimated there's going to be 200 million climate refugees in the next 10 or 20 years. What are we going to do with all those people? Here in the Southwest, we could be those people. If we run out of water or it gets too hot, where are we going to go? We're going to move north? Are they going to have us up there? We need to take care of our own stuff and put regeneration at the center of every act that we do, every thought. The good news is scientists say that if we reduce carbon to net zero, we can stop the warming. We can. There was a recent TikTok I put on my Instagram with David Attenborough, and someone's interviewing him, and he says to him, have we destroyed the whole planet? And you can see the emotion well up in David. I almost started crying. And he says, it's not without redemption. And that's why I love him so much. He knows more about the planet and its workings than just about anybody on the planet. And he sees it's not without redemption, that we can do this. And we need to stop turning a blind eye and realizing that, this COVID thing is just nuts, they're scaring us and taking all our energy away so that we can't deal with what we really need to, which is this crisis. Let me tell you, when this crisis happens, it isn't going to matter who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated, who wears a mask, who doesn't wear a mask. We're all part of the same human race. No matter where we live on the globe, no matter what color we are, no matter what gender we are, no matter what age we are, and we need to all realize that and come together as humans, as humanity, and address this crisis together by being in celebration, not fear. Because that's how we're going to win. Honestly, that's my message. Does anybody want to say anything? All right, I love you guys. Watch that documentary, The Year the World Changed, David Attenborough. And remember, regeneration is central to human existence. Every single cell in our body knows what regeneration is, and we can practice it in our lives. We can practice it in ourselves, we can practice it in our families, we can practice it in our communities, we can practice it in our societies, in our churches, in our groups. Every place we go, it's way more important than any of this other trivial stuff we hear about every day. This is the biggest, most important thing we need to address right now, the regeneration of our planet. So take yourself out of it a little bit. Take a pause from eating fish. Stop eating as much meat. If you're going to eat meat, make it regeneratively farmed, or for sure just grass-fed. Make all your food organic and grow as much as you can yourself. These are all ways to regenerate yourself and the planet. All right. I hope you learned something. Well, you can listen to it again. I love you guys. DM me with any questions or comments. Regenerative farming is the future, and you want to do as much of it yourself as you can, even if it's on your windowsill. Okay. Be well. Love you guys. Bye-bye.